Jack it up. Jack it up.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Raise.dev Hacktoberfest Help Desk. My name is Joe and I'm your host for this show. For those of you who are new to the Hacktoberfest Help Desk, this is a show here that we go live 3 times a day all throughout October to help you with your Hacktoberfest problems and questions and help you get closer to landing great pull requests this Hacktoberfest. So today we've got a very special guest who I'll be introducing very shortly. But in the meantime, a couple of things just to run through. First of all, if you have questions or need help at any point throughout your Hacktoberfest journey, you can submit them to us here at the help desk at raise.dev/Hacktoberfest. What we do is we get those questions over to one of our expert guests and we review them here live on the show, answer them and email you the recording straight after so you get your questions answered in good time. You're also very welcome to ask us questions in the chat as we go along with the show. Couple of warnings though. Please ask questions, we will answer them. If you want to post a link, say to your own project or to something that's relevant or to something we're talking about, that's super welcome. But we do have a very finely tuned moderation bot because the internet is a big and scary place. So before you post a link, please @RaiseDevs and just say, hey, can I post a link? And then I will add you to the permit list so you don't get timed out and put in the corner by our lovely mod bot. So again, please give us a warning before you post any links. Other than that, the other things to mention, as I said, we are going live 3 times a day. This is our first show for today. We have 2 other shows. After this, we've got Wilhelm Klopp, and later on, we've got Lizzie Siegel. It's kind of a Twilio day. We accidentally Twilio-dayed. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So you can see our full schedule for the week at twitch.tv/RaiseDevs schedule. And I'll do a little bit of a teaser and run through that schedule for the week at the end of the show as well. And then the final thing from me before I bring on our guest for the day, here at Raise.dev, our mission is to help you level up your developer career, whether it's you're trying to get your first job in tech, whether you're trying to career change, whether you're trying to make the move from mid-level to senior, whatever it is, we help you out by getting you matched with an expert coach who will spend time with you working on your goals, whether that means pair programming on some projects or whatever it is. And right now, whilst we're in early access, we are completely free. So that's why we're involved in Hacktoberfest this year. We want to help make people get their first steps. We want to help people get their first steps into open source. We launched just 3 weeks ago, and you can sign up right now below. So whew, that was everything from me. I see we've got the Layla fan stands in the crowd already. Let's add our guest to the show. Welcome, Layla. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, very good. First stream of the day. Just finished my coffee, so everything is great. For the folks in the chat who don't know who you are, which looks like very few of them at the moment, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Layla Porter. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, stuff like that as Layla Codes It. So I am a senior developer evangelist over at Twilio, which is a cloud communications platform. We have lots of tools to help new developers as well. So it's great. It's one of the things I'm really passionate about. So I'm really excited to be here with Raise Dev. So that's kind of me. Oh, I guess I'm a C# developer. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm on the board of directors for the .NET Foundation. And I also run my local .NET meetup. So a lot of things.
Yes, and we have a lot of things to talk about. So I guess for the folks viewing, how we're going to do this, we're going to start a little bit talking about Layla and your career, because there's some interesting bits in there that are very relevant to us, so like the things that we hope we can help folks with here at Raise.dev, like career changing and that kind of thing. And then towards the back end of the show, we're going to move on to talking about a project that you've been working on to help folks with Hacktoberfest, and we're going to get into some C#. And hopefully, I believe we're going to do a live pull request as well, which is always exciting.
I think we are, yeah.
Wicked. Cool. So I guess to start off with, you sent me this fantastic, wonderful bio about your career journey. So I'd love to hear a little bit about like how you got your start in tech and I guess developer relations. But before that, I imagine there was some dev work. But yeah, where did your tech career begin?
So I kind of dabbled in tech quite a bit. So I went back to university in 2006 to do graphic design. I'd been working as a marketing manager, and I was doing lots of design work for full page adverts in magazines and things like that. And I really enjoyed it. And I thought I'd like to go and learn more about this. So I started doing that. And that's when I first came across HTML and CSS and things like that. So that was 2006. And I was like, oh, I really like this stuff. And my boyfriend is a developer as well, so he's like, oh, I'll show you a bit of this. So I was like, okay. So I sort of did a little bit, and then I got into Flash and ActionScript. So that was really my first programming bit, was a bit of ActionScript. And then I got the opportunity to ride horses full time. So I've always ridden since I was tiny. So I left after a year of graphic design. I didn't really get on with my course either. It was probably the wrong course for me. So it was fine. And I went to ride horses full time and actually moved out to Mallorca.
Wow, cool. So what kind of role, job was that? Was this like competitive horse riding? Or was this like training?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Training. So I competed at international level, and I trained horses to be sold as well. So we'd get horses in, I'd bring them on, and then we'd sell them. So I did that, and I did that out in Spain, which was rather nice. And then my partner and I decided to move back to the UK. And I still carried on doing horses, and I started coaching people, and then I moved into like the people bit of it. So I started to train as a personal trainer and a Pilates teacher to all help people coaching. So I actually have a magazine here of like me in a magazine on a horse.
That's so cool.
About see it. So that was me.
I love the outfit.
Oh yeah, it was all top hat and tails. If you dig hard enough, you can find me in full regalia, like top hat, tails, on a massive big horse competing. Wild. So we came back, and I lost my dad in 2013, and that was kind of like a really like a real big change in me. I thought I need to have a more substantial career than riding horses. It's quite hand to mouth. So I had a couple of my own horses. So I decided to sell them and open up a Pilates studio. I actually started when I was coaching. I rented at the stables I was at. We had a porter cabin. It was broken down, the roof leaked. And I said to the girl who ran the stables, and I said, can I rent the porter cabin off you? And she said, sure, 50 quid a month. Was that all right? Wow. So I wallpapered it. I cleaned it out. It was full of junk and mice and all sorts. I got it all done, and then we had a heavy rain and it flooded. So then I had to get on the roof, and I poured bitumen all over the roof and pushed it out, you know, and sealed it all. And I actually ran classes in there, like, so I could have 4 mats there. So I started small, and that started to build. So I sold the horses and actually got commercial premises. But then I needed a booking system. So my boyfriend actually developed an online booking system for me. And then I was like, I need this. I need to be able to query that. And he's like, and
that's the time.
And he goes, you know how to do a little bit of code, because he'd shown me how to do C#. And I actually had been doing the front end for this. I was, you know, learning and improving my CSS and HTML and JavaScript to do all the front. And he's like, well, you know, it's just the next step to go on and do it. So I was like, all right. So I started to do that. I learned how to do SQL and started, you know, doing queries and building up dashboards for myself and things like that. So it was cool. And then there was this big rise. You probably know in the UK that there's a whole load of very cheap gyms, 24-hour gyms, and you pay like £15 a month. And they have classes, and people are like, Layla, why am I going to pay you £10 a class when I can pay £10 a month for a gym? Exactly.
What is that brand called? That's going to drive me wild now. I know.
So I was really struggling with trying to get business in, and I got sort of hogtied by a competitor who was actually a school. So they were producing the Pilates teachers in the area, but they were banning their Pilates teachers from working for me. So I was like, okay. So I was really struggling to get Pilates teachers in. So I was working very like long hours, mornings, evenings, and I couldn't grow the business. And I then listened to a podcast. I listened to Code Newbie.
I love Code Newbie.
Yeah, and it was the episode with Amy Simmons, and she was talking about how she moved from being a journalist to being a developer. She went to a boot camp, and I was like, career change is something you can do.
I mean, at this point, you already kind of career changed multiple. Well, twice,
about 3 times. I mean, I started in retail. I was a retail manager, and then I went to marketing, and then the horses, then the fitness. And I was like, interesting. So you can do code without having a degree, and so I started to think about this. I was like, maybe I could do this. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna knuckle down and start studying. So I got books, and I always had free time in the afternoons because I taught Pilates in the mornings and then coached people on their horses at lunchtime times, and then started teaching from 6 till about 10 o'clock at night. So I always had this block in the afternoon.
That's still hard hours though.
It was tough. So I managed to get in 3 hours a day, sort of 6 to 7 days a week. I even took my books on holiday with me because I didn't want to lose it. So I just, I really wanted it, Joe. I thought I can do this. And I then was like, okay, when do I think about getting a, and I started having a look at junior developer roles and things like that. And it was December 2015. And I'm like, oh, I'm not ready. And then a friend said, when will you be ready? Do you know what? And my partner's like, just apply. What's the worst they can say? No. I was like, okay. So I applied to maybe, I don't know, 15 roles that week. And I actually got, I also spoke to a recruiter that my boyfriend had worked with and said, hey, this is me. Do you know anyone? And he says, I do know someone. And so I got invited for 3 different interviews. I was like, oh my goodness, how did this happen? One asked me to do a technical test. So I did that. And then I didn't hear anything more from them. I was like, oh, that's fine. And the other 2 I interviewed with, and I chose the one that paid really poorly, but offered a lot of support and mentorship. I thought, that's what I need. So I took that one, and then I took that, and then the 3rd company that I did the technical test were like, we'd love you to come in for interview. I was like, oh, sorry, too late.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I started the second week of January. So I
Wow.
sort of applied the beginning of December and I
Yeah,
started the second week of January. So
that's amazing. Yeah, and especially a
yeah,
hard time to look for a job as well. It's a good turnaround. So
yeah.
I have a whole heap of questions, so I'm going to write them down because I don't want to interrupt,
Okay.
I guess, the story. So yeah, sorry. So that was your first job, and you went with that one because they were offering you like guidance and support. So I guess that was
Yeah.
like they were a company that was like experienced in taking juniors and knew how they wanted to grow,
No,
like help them grow. Oh, really? Wow. Okay, they were just
no.
going for it. Amazing.
Yeah, it was a small agency.
Yeah.
And so they had the owner who was a developer who
Yeah.
ran it. It was his stepson,
Right.
his brother, and another developer. So there's just these four blokes in a converted farm building. And I was like, okay. So I went, sorry. So I turned up my first day and I nearly had a breakdown. I nearly quit on the
Right.
spot because they're like, oh, just go and create a new project and try and have a go at this. This is something we need. And I was like, let's do it. And I sort of like, I sat there for like an hour staring at my computer going, like imposter syndrome beating on me. And I was like, I can't do this. I should just walk out and leave and go home. So I plucked up the courage and went and spoke to my new boss and said, I'm really sorry, but I don't really know how to get started. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he spent the rest of the afternoon sat with me and got me going. And then I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. And he would spend an hour with me every day for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, I found a bit of confidence. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I ran with it and just progressed from there. But yeah, that first day is really tough.
Yeah, and also that problem you described is like, I always like get into this state when I'm talking to people about like the progression from like the gap between like tutorials and confidence, where it's like you've read every tutorial, you've done every tutorial, and like you start to read them, you no longer get anything from them. But there's still such a gap from there to like being sat in front of a blank text editor and just be like making the thing happen. Like if you get put on an existing code base that's been started, it's far easier than just like, cool, blank text editor, start a project. It's like such a leap. So yeah, I really feel that. That's incredible. So I guess the other question I was going to ask is like, so you mentioned at the start that you're into C# and .NET. Was that was that like what you had learned from the beginning? Was that like what your booking system and stuff was built in? Cool.
It was, yeah. So I did learn sort of JavaScript and things like that by using Free Code Camp.
Cool.
So I worked through a lot of that. I did all the front end on that. And then I used the Microsoft Virtual Academy, which is now more Microsoft Learn, and
which is
followed.
Wonderful.
It is a fantastic resource. So the MVA was what I used to learn ASP.NET and MVC so every day I'd watch the videos and I'd repeat them. And Christopher Harrison and John Galloway were the presenters on this. And because they recorded the show live, a little bit like you would on Twitch, I felt like they were talking to me.
Yeah.
I also felt like they were my hand holding, even though this was pre-recorded and they'd done it like a year ago. So that was pretty amazing. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with John and Christopher now and do some code. It was really funny.
That's the dream.
It was. But what was really amazing was that I actually got to meet John Galloway last year. I was in Sweden for a conference.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, it's John Galloway. It's John Galloway. I was like, oh my God. I walked through the speaker room and I was like, it's John Galloway.
Amazing.
It was so funny.
Did you tell him like that you'd learned from his courses? How did he react to that?
Oh, he was like chuffed to bits. He was like, amazing. Oh my goodness. He goes, you don't get feedback from people actually using your courses. And he said, this is amazing. You've made my day. He says, I've got to tell Christopher. He said, you know, and look at you here speaking at a conference in Sweden and things like that now where you progress to. So it was really cool. And it was, I think he was really pleased to hear that something he'd created had helped someone.
Yeah. Yeah, they're such a nice bunch. I got to hang out with Krista Harrison a lot at a couple of hackathons in India last year, and he cares so hard.
Oh,
He's
he does.
wonderful.
He's a
Um,
great guy.
Yeah. So I guess from there, so that was your first developer job. So what I want to get to is like at what point you made the jump into developer relations and how that happened. But I imagine there was some stuff in between.
Yes, there were a few jobs in between. So I think one thing when you are a new dev, you can't be afraid to switch jobs.
Right.
If you want to progress quickly. So I stayed at my first job for about 6 months. I got everything I needed out of it, really. And I was like, right, I'm ready for the next challenge. So I changed jobs again, and I stayed at that one for about 4 months, because what I realized really quickly was that I had to teach them how to use Git.
Right.
They're like, oh, they just switched over to Git. They had another name for it, and they had some code names for it. We used Git bucket, but that was called something else far not safe to actually say. And so I had to teach them how to use Git. I wrote all these documents out for them, and they were still like, oh. And then I was like, okay, so I'm ready. I've done this issue. I'm ready to pop it in and get it up to the server. Oh, can you put it in some folders in this folder structure, and I'll drag it onto the server? I was like,
okay.
Not even right click publish.
Yeah.
It was like, I'll just drag it through the FTP onto the server. I was like,
funnily enough, I was reminiscing about like the old days of doing like PHP and throwing it onto a FTP, like onto some cPanel shared host via FTP, and how wonderful and simple that was. But when you're doing it as a day job, it's not. When you want to be using Git, it's not the ideal situation.
No. And I said, they had no idea of build numbers or what build we were on. And if we had errors on the server, it's like, I don't know what made it break. I was like, I can't continue here. Because I'm so early in my career, I didn't want to pick up bad habits. I wanted to be learning good things. So I was like, right, I now know the questions I need to ask at my next job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, as you keep going, you start to define and refine what you want from a job and what you need as a developer. So my next job, this was quite scary. This was proper hardcore, my next job. So I wasn't a web developer. I was a software engineer at this job role. So that was a communications platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually worked, we had a hardware team that worked in C++ and actually managed all the calls that go through the hardware. So it was voice over IP. Mm-hmm. And you've got your big main carriers like BT and things like that. But then you have all these very small carriers who are like independent businesses. They might have 2 or 3 people, and they own a couple of routes.
Right.
And these are usually to sort of routes that route through like Asia. So we had a lot of customers who had routes through Afghanistan and India and sort of very much into Asia. Mm-hmm. And so they just need to manage their routes, and they need to manage their prices and manage who can connect to them and who they connect to. And I worked on that platform. Mm-hmm. So it was proper sort of programming. It wasn't just the crud you get with web development. We really had to think about things. So I think that really catapulted my understanding when you do that 8 hours a day, every day.
Sure. And especially like, I hear a lot about, and well, I guess this is kind of relevant to your current job as well, but I hear a lot about like the early days of like setting up things like Twilio and kind of communications engineering with like people with like hacked apart cell phones in server racks and just like interfacing with them at the super low level to make all this stuff work. And I imagine especially like going from web development to a company that's doing hardware stuff in C++ must have been quite the, hardcore shock.
Yeah. So I didn't do the C++ bit. We had an API that was very well documented, an internal API for me to like hook into the hardware stuff. And there's a lot of legislation around it as well. But you saying like this hacking apart, we had clients in Africa who had, I can't remember what they are, but you basically get these big racks which hold like 100 SIM cards.
Right.
And they're prepaid SIM cards. So they put these racks in and it's illegal. So they strap them to the back of a pickup truck and they drive them round so that they can't be pinpointed.
Oh my God, it's like the Batman film with like the bomb in the truck being driven around. That's amazing.
So it's crazy. And I don't know if that still goes on, but it was going on a few years ago. So, you know, we had to, because of these things, we don't know that this is going on, and our customers or things like that. But our customers could have been connecting to this, and there's a lot of fraud around telecoms. So we had legal requirements to capture all the CDRs, call detail records.
Right.
And you think how many millions of minutes we process, millions of minutes of calls we process a minute. We had really interesting, we had these two servers that were redundancy for each other. They were column storage. They had special names, but they were like £50,000 or something for this sort of data servers. But you know, you had to keep the records. I think it's something like 7 years. So we had to be able to, everything had to be audited. So everything that we added, we had to have auditing into it. So it was a really complex system I worked on. And I think it really
with very real consequences. It's like, hey, if you lose something that needs to be audited, it's
it's I mean, we sometimes would have, when we did see fraud happen, it could be like a customer was defrauded of £100,000 in a day or in a couple of hours. I mean, it was shocking. So working in that kind of environment, it was really interesting, and it definitely progressed. So the next job, I actually got employed as a senior developer because I had such a wealth of experience.
What was the year, like the year period between your that first developer job and the senior one?
That was, it was about 19 months.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
I didn't stop learning, you see, but I started these jobs, and I'd still be learning on the weekends. I'd ask so many questions. I'd try and sit with the more experienced developers and say, I don't get this. Can you explain it to me? I forced the knowledge out of them.
That's amazing. So we're going to senior job in a sec, but one thing I want to come back to that you said a little while ago that I think is super important, especially if people moving into this industry, is like not being afraid to change jobs in development. And this is something that I had a job at one point that I was at for like literally 6 months and changed. And I had a lot of people at the time who were like, oh, you're not worried about like the long-term effects on your CV. And I especially hear that from people from other industries where it seems there's a lot of importance on, you know, staying in a job for like 4 or 5 years. But I guess like part of I don't want to get into bashing this industry that we're talking about changing into, but I think one of the things that does happen in tech is that like you are far more, just by the nature of the tech economy, like you're far more likely to increase a level or get a significant raise by changing company after 12, 18 months than you are by staying in that company. Because for some reason we're set up to hire lots of new people, we're not set up to reward them. But like, I guess in your experience, that has been true, and you haven't seen like the negative effects that people fear from changing jobs that regularly.
I think it's almost expected in this industry. I have my friend from uni, her husband's a DBA, and he changed every 6 months, and he is super high up in finance, in like the finance industry as a DBA, and he's like a SQL master. They stopped doing those exams a while back, and he's like one of 4 SQL masters in the UK. But I was like, my friend would be like, oh, he's changed job again. I was like, didn't he just change like 3 months ago?
I definitely know a couple of people like that, but yeah. But it's I mean, it's amazing at one point that like this is an industry where you can continue to find where you can learn most and be happiest and be well rewarded, rather than having to stick with like make a job that makes you miserable work, I guess. It's another perk. So yeah, you sorry, Irina's joined. Nice, thank you everyone for hanging out. Just a reminder, folks who've just joined the chat, you can ask questions at any point. Please jump in. If you want to post a link, let us know in the chat beforehand so you don't get timed out. So you got the senior role, and the senior role, was that also in communications?
No. So that was back to sort of web development.
Cool.
And after being at the other place, so this one was actually where I was senior. I applied for a senior developer role, whereas the one at the communications place, I had applied for a mid to senior role and got that. So that was very flat structure. So I progressed within that to be like a more senior member in there, and then got to the senior role at the other place, which was, so that was I think I've got confused with it. The 19 months, I've just seen Irina has gone 19 months to senior. So that was 19 months to the software engineering role, where I stayed for about 14 months. And then I applied for the senior role, like the actual title of senior web developer, as opposed to software engineer. So that was sort of, I guess, about 2.5 years into it. When was that? I applied. I got that in 2018. So 2 years, on. Still quite a short time to go from nothing to employed as a senior developer. So I started at that place, and I soon realized that after working on quite a hardcore system, going back to CRUD, and this was for a company that managed accommodation for universities. I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can just go and do CRUD when I've been doing quite complex software engineering. And I wanted to move because thank you for popping CRUD in. Sorry.
we covered it quite extensively in an earlier show, so
that's okay. So I was just like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, but I moved because I wanted to move to a company that did test-driven development. I wanted to progress and learn how to do better, more maintainable code, which we didn't do at the other place, the communications place. We didn't have any tests, none whatsoever.
Which, and again, in the context of like needing 7 years of like good logs, that's quite terrifying.
Yeah, we had QAs and testers, and it was after, I mean, we'd do a release, and then it was okay, hands off. We'd hand that over, and then we'd wait for the bugs to come in, and it was 9 weeks of regression bug fixing, and I was like, kill now. And that's when I thought there had to be a better way. So that's when I was like, I need to move to somewhere that does test-driven development or has better software practices so I can learn these. And so I went to this company, lovely company, really supportive. I was like, I don't know how to do test-driven development, but I'm good at other stuff. And they're like, no problem.
Why I'm interested in you, which is a great way of structuring your next move.
Yeah, so I pair programmed every day with one of their developers to learn how to do TDD. And that was brilliant. We'd just sit down in the morning, we'd do it together, and I got it. It only took about 2 weeks for me to get into the flow of it. When you get the idea, you start to progress through it, and you start to change your way of thinking about how you approach problems. So I was like, okay, but we still pair programmed even after I sort of got the rhythm of it. And we really progressed quickly, but I was like, I don't think I can stay here long term doing forms. So I was like, oh, well, it's fine. I like the company. I like the people. It's okay. It's just chill. And I'd been running the .NET meetup for quite some time by this stage, in Milton Keynes, where I live. And I gave a talk on my experiences with learning test-driven development. And my now manager happened to be there. And at the end of the session, my manager goes, how would you feel about being a developer evangelist? I was like, what's one of them?
Which is a common reaction to that title.
So
is this Marcus?
Marcus, yeah. So he sent me the job spec and said, let me know. And so I started to look through it, and I was like, yeah, this could work for me. Especially because I'd been a marketing manager as well. So I had that kind of idea about things. I'd run my own business. So you need to be sort of a bit of a self-starter as well, because it's quite a nebulous role.
Yeah.
So I was like, great. So I applied, and I applied in February. End of February I applied.
Yeah.
And then Easter was early, and we had the Beast from the East. Do you remember that? The Beast from the East?
I do remember that, yeah. Which is like, for folks who aren't British, we talk about the weather all the time, but we actually very rarely get weather of any consequence. For people with like the mildest weather in the world, we're very dramatic about it. So when there is like a storm that's even slightly gusty, it doesn't just get like a normal name like like big hurricanes get. We give it like theatrical names. Yeah, I remember it blew part of my mum's fence down was like the big event in my family's lives.
Yeah, it kind of snowed out a lot of the airports, didn't it?
Right, yeah.
So part of I got through all these video interviews with Twilio, and then they're like, yes, we want you for the face-to-face. Can you come to New York next week? And I was like,
trip to New York, yeah.
Okay. So I sort of I told work, I said, oh, a friend has given me a free ticket to New York. It's Easter weekend. So I kind of would, I know it's really short notice and I'm supposed to have 2 weeks. And they're like, it's fine, go. I was like, okay. And you feel like, because they've such a nice company as well. I was like, I don't want to lie to you.
Really difficult. Yeah.
It is. So I was like, this weather's coming in, there's snow everywhere. And I was like, okay. So I got woken up at 5 a.m. the day I'm supposed to fly out, which was a Wednesday, to a message saying, your flight has been cancelled. I was like,
no.
Oh no. So I got on the phone from 5 a.m. to the airline and they're like, can you be at Heathrow for 9:30?
Right.
We can fly you to Atlanta and then connect you to New York. I'm like, yes, I can. Hit the M25, got stuck in major traffic. And I was like, and I'm like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. And I got, we got there and I ran through the airport. It just ticked over 9:30 and they're like, oh, well, you're not even on our flight manifest, so you can't check in. I was like, what?
Sorry, what? Yeah.
So I couldn't have, even if I'd made it on time, I wouldn't have been able to go into it.
Yeah.
And I'm just reading, can't believe the URL isn't 2018, the Beast from the East.
I mean, it is like, so this is like, I was looking for it to find this. And like the second line, like straight in the first line, it's anti-cyclone Harmut dubbed the Beast from the East by the media.
It sounds so much more dramatic though, doesn't it?
Also, hi Elliot, thanks for joining us. First time I've seen you in here. Yeah, so you're not on the flight manifest, but you need to get to New York.
Yeah. So I'm like having an asthma attack and sobbing, and they're like, what do we do with this, people? Hi, Rick. And I'm like, I have a job interview. I have to go. And they're like, okay. Can you wait till 2:00 and we'll send you to Detroit and then you can connect from there? I was like, okay. So I'm like, I've got my stuff and I'm like, so I paid, I think £30 for the paid for lounge. So I could go like sit on a comfy chair.
Place to hyperventilate.
Yeah. So it's like, it's worth the £30 to sit in this overpriced room. So I sit in there and I just sat and I got my laptop out and I'd had to prepare a presentation for this interview. So I'm going through that. Why am I doing this to myself? I don't even know if I want to do DevRel. Yeah. And so I get on the plane. And I'm like, got this much room. I'm in the middle seat in the middle, and I have another breakdown. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? And then one of the cabin crew, I called them over and I said, is that seat over there, the double by the window free? And she's like, yes, go for it. So I managed to get a whole like aisle seat,
Nice. Yeah.
double thing, and it's like, oh, it's okay, everything's all right, Layla, you're fine, you're fine.
Which is the DevRel dream, by the way, when you end up in an empty row during the flight to a conference.
It's like first class.
Yeah.
And so I got there and got to Detroit, and then I had quite a short connection. And someone says all flights to New York are cancelled. I was like, yeah, what? And then I had to go and collect my luggage. And then Detroit airport is huge. And they have like a monorail within the airport.
Right.
And then I find out, no, my flight is the only one that's going, the only flight that's going. So I then get on there, and my goodness, the entire airport is at this gate, all on a wait list.
Right.
And I'm like, I am booked on this flight. I'm on it. So eventually,
which also, again, for some context here, the whole US waitlist for flights thing is not a thing in flights from Europe. And like, with the first time you encounter that, it is, as a British person or as a European person, it is terrifying. You're like, wait, I'm not guaranteed on this flight. Like, how? This isn't a bus. How does this work?
I know. All these people everywhere. There was like hundreds of people, and I'm like, this is a really small plane. And I'm like, here I am. I have a boarding pass. I am getting on this. So they're like, yes, madam, come through. Yeah. So I'm like, so I'm in this seat at the back. I've got a window seat, and I've got this guy next to me. We chat for like a little, like 20 minutes. He falls asleep, and then I'm like, oh, it's pretty. I look out the window. I look at the big lakes, and I'm like, oh, that's great. We get to New York, and we hit the blizzard.
Oh no.
And I'm like, oh, it's pretty. Look at the snow on the lights, because it's quite late at night at this time. And then I'm sitting in this plane thinking, what is this noise? Why is it so loud? Why is the pilot thrashing the engines? And then I know quite a bit about planes.
Right.
And I'm like, the only reason a pilot is thrashing an engine is because we're down an engine. So it's one of these little planes with the engines at the rear. Oh, so I look out, and I knew I could see the engine. So I look out. I was like, everyone else is asleep. And the cabin crew is walking up and down looking like really tight-lipped. And I look out again, and I'm like, no, that engine is definitely off, and it's black. Oh and so we'd had an engine
in a blizzard as well.
In a blizzard. And I'm like, I'm going to die going for this job. I'm literally going to die going for this job. It's been my like nightmare journey in my entire life. And I was like, why? Why did I put myself through this? And we're coming in really fast. I can see I'm going into Newark, and I'm looking over, and you can see everything's really fast. I'm like, we're going so fast. And we come in, they'd cleared the runway. No circling, nothing. We came straight in, top speed. I can see all these blue flashing lights coming towards us, and then circling away as we landed safely. And they'd covered the runway in flame retardant foam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then as I was at the back of the plane, and as I left, like the captain's like, thank you. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you very much. Like nod, wink, and left.
We had a comment from Blue Hat Brit, which is, I hope you told them this travel story in the interview. Sounds like pretty relevant experience to show you can do the job. And yeah, absolutely.
I totally did, Blue Hat Brit, because the head of the team, I had 5 interviews that day, and the
the same day that you landed?
No, I took a day. I landed at 11 at night, and I had all of Thursday just to chill, relax, practice, and Friday was my interview day.
Cool.
And one of the questions, one of the head of the DevRel team asked me, can you tell me about like your worst travel experience? And I said, well, let me tell you about 2 days ago.
Oh my God. Yeah, actually, I guess that'd be a useful kind of step back for folks who aren't aware of what developer management is, what DevRel is. Why are we making such a big deal of the travel element here? Do you want to briefly talk about what that role is and what it involves?
Yeah, so it involves traveling a lot to conferences. Basically, well, depending on your company. When I joined Twilio, it was North America and Europe that I covered. So I'd fly. I don't know how many times I've been to the US since I joined Twilio. Far too many times. And I've been to Eastern Europe. I've been to Israel. I've been to Scandinavia. I've been all over the place, really, traveling for events that Twilio puts on, or conferences. So I've spoken at conferences all over the world, all over North America and Europe, I should say. Not, I haven't gone to Asia or South Pacific or anything like that. But yeah, just traveling and speaking at conferences and doing booths and stuff. Yeah. So
Awesome.
you're on the plane a lot.
Yes, yeah. So you made it to the interviews, and you get five interviews in one day. And I guess this is going to be like a very different interview experience to what you'd had before with like software engineering, web dev, and the presentation. What was your presentation on?
JavaScript templating, would you believe?
Nice, awesome, cool. What was the templating language to draw at the time?
Mustache.
Mustache, cool, okay.
Yeah. I sort of came at it from a point of, you know, the HTML can get really untidy in MVC projects, and to try and, you know, I spoke a little bit about Vue, because you can use Vue.js for the same sort of thing without having the whole spa. You can use it in the same way. But I live coded implementing Mustache into an app, like how it worked before. I refactored it with Mustache, and then showed that it still worked, and had to do that all in 20 minutes.
Nice, awesome, cool.
So, yeah.
Well, this feels a little bit like when you're like, you know, when you watch an action movie and there's like a terrible flashback at the beginning of the film where like it seems like the main character is going to be in terrible danger, but you know the movie continues, so that you know the main character's fine. This feels a little bit like that, because obviously you got the job.
Yes.
So
yes,
everything went well.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. So I found out that was on the Friday, and Monday they made me an offer. So that was really good.
Awesome. It's a good time turnaround. Were you even back in the UK by that point?
I flew back on Saturday night, so I got back on Sunday morning.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Cool. Yeah. And so now I've completely lost track of the timelines. That was February 2018, so it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, I've been at Twilio 2.5 years now.
Wonderful. Cool. And your day, I guess, the other big thing that like is relevant to this, so you described like the initial plan for the job is obviously a lot of traveling and going to conferences, and I imagine your day to day has changed drastically this year, and your activities have altered and had to adapt a little bit to the current situation. What does your like day to day as a developer around just look like now?
So I stream. I do streaming. A lot of it has been around creating workshops. So I've been doing this workshop program for an early part of this year. So that was recording videos, documenting it, getting the videos edited, thinking about how we're going to market the videos, creating blog content, and working on things like Signal. So Twilio had their conference 2 weeks ago, working on content for that. How are we going to do that? Just basically your time gets sucked up into meetings and admin answering. I get emailed about questions, a lot in Spanish on WhatsApp. So I'm always having to answer those.
I assume you speak Spanish given your time there.
Yeah, but it's really like I can't do business Spanish on an email.
There's like very different between like casual Spanish and like, you know, developer Spanish.
Yeah, so I can't do that. I mean, so I get a lot of work helping people in emails, and then, you know, messing around with tooling as well, just trying to figure out how we have a lot of products in Twilio, and trying to figure out like the best way to implement them, best practice. So I spend I code most days just fiddling around with trying to get code in. So awesome. It's a varied job.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess that leads us nicely into the second half of what we had planned, which was in the spirit of helping people and getting some code in every day, that you've been working on this project for Hacktoberfest. Blue Hat Brit, you're totally allowed to ask questions.
Yes,
Blue
please do.
Asks, how has the pandemic impacted your job? We may have just done that one.
I can answer that one though, Blue Hat Brit. It hasn't really impacted my job. We pivoted really well at Twilio. No, it's not too late. So I was already, I only went to the office 2 days a week, and the rest of the time I worked from home. So I was already quite happy being at home. So we just came up with ways that we could still reach people. So like virtual conferences, streaming, the workshop program I work, and not having to to travel has been less stressful. I get to stay home with my dogs. I don't have jet lag all the time. I mean, I was literally more or less in a permanent state of jet lag.
Yeah. I was when I was doing a lot of DevRel, people used to ask me like how I wasn't jet lagged all the time. I was like, you see, the trick is to have jet lag, you have to have a sleeping pattern, and you can't have one of them when you're on a plane every other day.
No. And you're sleeping like this with someone leaning on you. So yeah, it's I found it more enjoyable the past year, to be honest, because I get big chunks of time to work on a project rather than a day here, travel, do stuff, talk, booth duty,
conference prep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
sorry, question for DigiDpack. Just briefly answers. No, DigiDpack, you're not in the wrong place. I guess you were forwarded here because you had a question. If you had a question from your Hacktoberfest event, throw it in the chat. We will be able to answer it. Cool. So yeah, awesome. So thank you for asking that, Blue Hat Brit. That was awesome. So should we jump into this project?
Sure.
So I guess to set some context first of all. So as far as I understand it, you built a project to help folks who were trying to, get their first contribution done during Hacktoberfest, right?
Yes, with a slight twist on it. So I am on the board of directors of the .NET Foundation, which is part of the purpose of the .NET Foundation is to look after the .NET open source community. So I was thinking, we're a foundation working on open source. We should do something in Hacktoberfest. So literally the week before October, so the Oktoberfest was the Thursday, and the Friday before that, I was like, I've got this idea. And so I started to build it on stream, and I did another stream on Saturday, and I had my great, awesome members of my community hopped in. So they're here. We've got Cryptic Enigma, we've got Rick Bosch, and I think White Pant was here. Say again?
Was Silicon Orchid another one?
Yes, Silicon Orchid is another one. Silicon Orchid is actually my boyfriend. So
nice.
He's in there. He did all our pipeline and everything. So he's in there.
Well, he better follow the channel. No pressure.
Yes. So I decided to build this app that served two purposes. It's very meta, is that you can come and track any PRs you do to a .NET open source project. And we have some prizes at the foundation. So hopefully we'll have some people submit to it, and we'll randomly select some people to send prizes to. So there's a little bit of a carrot. But also, if you don't know or are unsure of doing a PR on a project, because it can be really daunting, really scary. We've made this as a project that it's got no business purpose. If you mess up, don't worry about it. And we set up in the Discord where we can chat about it, we can support things. I put in a whole load of intentional mistakes, like little things that people could, like even inline styles, just to try and entice people to come and make a PR, just to fix something like that, or like a spelling mistake. So they could just do like even the most sort of what they might think trivial of PRs. So we did all of that, and I welcome sort of craziness. It was very plain. We just had bootstrap from the template, and come in and make it your own and learn how to do a PR. So
awesome.
So yeah.
Right, cool. Should we throw it up on the screen? Is the screen ready?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay. Boom. There it is. I love I love this scrolling text. It's very good.
So that's one of the community members, Marcus Voice Programmer, put that in, and he keeps doing repeated PRs, improving it all the time. So I think if I hover over it, it used to stop, but he's changed that. So there's been some styling in here. We've got two columns. I had this like left justified, centered. It was a whole mishmash. This had inline styles on it, and next to it was like the image above it has inline styles in, so just to tease people. And of course that was beside it, not below it and things. So you can log in with GitHub. What I've just been popping in is this new bit here. I did this on stream the other day so that we can list projects and people can come and add them.
Yeah.
And then we've got a little bit about it. Still just, it's all a work in progress. We keep working on it.
There's still 3 weeks of Hacktoberfest left.
Yeah, we're only halfway through. So I can log in and you can see, you can add your PRs.
Cool, okay.
So you can see it's all a bit janky as well. It's all a bit off center. So I'm waiting for people
to PR. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, one thing that's great about this is that it says valid there, and I'm assuming that's valid in the context of like the Hacktoberfest criteria. Cool, because that's super useful. Because one of the things that we've seen a lot in the Hacktoberfest Discord is someone will make a PR to a project, and then they'll bring the PR to the Discord and say like, "Hey, can anyone tell me if this is valid?" And so the fact that you just you have that identified in the app is wonderful.
Well, one of the things we're trying to do, we have struggled with trying to get the Hacktoberfest tag through on the repos. Sure. So that's a valid PR.
Yeah.
We also have struggled with the label Hacktoberfest-accepted.
Yeah.
So we're still working on that. I know Martin Woodward over at GitHub, and I've been talking to him about the APIs and how we can get to use that. Yeah. So this repo is completely, on GitHub. Yeah. So if people are like, oh, I'd really like to know how that's done, it's all in here, or they can come and ask us. So it has to have like these labels on it to be accepted. And then in the PRs, you can have, if we go into this one, this is the one we're going to merge today. Cool. You can have, if I go and put a label.
White Panther's in the chat. We're merging your PR, White Panther. Excellent.
Yeah, so we can go Hacktoberfest accepted on this. Mm-hmm. And that's another valid thing that we can do. So we are struggling to pull some of these ones out. So if anyone has any ideas about that, we'd love to hear them. So we're working on that. So White Panther is a fellow streamer and a front-end guru. And yesterday on stream, White Panther looked at Tailwind CSS for the first time. And so she wanted to put that into the project. And so I think she did a whole load of things here. We've already had Cryptic Enigma and Rick Bosch approve it. So I'm happy with that, but we can go and have a quick look around. So if I was coming to this, I'd be like, let's start to do a code review.
107,000 lines added. Well done, White Panther.
She only moved 132. She did tell me, she warned me, I'm going to be making a rather large PR. So this is quite a lot, but what we can do when you're a maintainer, you'll go through and you can tick through the view just to help you manage it. So there's a lot of classes in here. I can make that a little bit bigger. That she's gone in and added. So I know this is already.
If you haven't seen this view before, you're seeing some lines highlighted red, some lines highlighted green. That's the red is the old line, the green is the new line, right?
Absolutely. So there's the diff, we would call it, isn't it really? So we have we can go through and see the changes.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is going to be classes and bringing in libraries, such as down here. We've got these. We got rid of Bootstrap. And we've brought in the output of, I'm guessing that this is going to be compiled from other ones and some of this stuff.
On this for a moment, just to kind of, so the topic, this PR is adding Tailwind CSS, which is like a new like CSS framework, I guess, which is, you're probably familiar with Bootstrap as like being the one that every project throws in by default to kind of get their default classes. So Tailwind is kind of like an alternative to Bootstrap, and that's what this big substitution here is for, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we've got that coming in. I've not really looked at it, but you can see if we go and look at, this is very bootstrappy, button small, button success. And, a lot of that's been stripped out. So I'm guessing it's going to be coming in different ways and different ways that it's added. So you can see this was all the navigation that was removed, and I'm guessing that there's a new nav in here. You can see it.
Tailwind classes.
Yeah. So it's looks like quite a different way of doing it. But it's sort of cumulative. It's little, you build up lots of classes. So it can be, things like this can be harder to read. Material design is another one that is kind of this pattern, I guess, this architecture where you add lots of classes and you can build them up.
Yeah. So White Panther just threw this into chat, so I put this up. The point of Tailwind is that you shouldn't need to write any CSS, just use the classes they provide. That sounds lovely.
Which
I
is
think the Race.dev site is Tailwind.
Yeah.
I need to ask Simon. I think the Race.dev site is Tailwind as well. Cool.
So you know, it's interesting. Not having to write CSS means that you're not getting things, and you know what people like to do, they like to put important on things, and then that gets all screwed up.
Your hierarchy is and you're just increasingly escalating the importance on things because you've added something else, so you need to crank up the priority of something else.
So I guess these classes are really granular, which allows you this level of control, which is why, you know, you have, I mean, there's a lot of classes added in here, but that's the granularity that this gives you, which is why you probably don't need to write your own classes because it gives you everything you need, which is really, really smart. So yeah, we can sort of, I know that 2 of our team have already reviewed this, so I'm sort of going to whiz through it a little bit.
Oh, hang on. This one's interesting. Oh, sorry.
Oh, which one? This one?
Yeah. So that one, this is, oh no, sorry. I misread this completely. Also, they're removing the UL class here as well.
Yeah. Let's expand it. It might be down here.
Oh, actually, Rick added a comment. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got what a reviewer might do if you expect this, if you do a PR, is that you might get questions. So Rick here has put this on a specific line and is saying, you know, this is the things here, you know, you could do this. You can do, this is like a ternary in here. So this is, depending on the answer of user is authenticated, that's going to be a true or false. If, based on that, you can either do if they are authenticated, you're going to give them a login button. If they're not authenticated, we're going to give them a login button so they can authenticate. So you know, that's a nice little bit of ternary, a use of programming there to make things a little bit more concise. So you can start going through. I'm not going to call you out on this typo, Rick.
Yeah, okay. I was just saying, no one noticed. Fine, don't tell anyone.
No one noticed it. So, you know, if you are doing a PR, you can, there's going to be stuff in here. I'm not even going to look at the package.json. I don't want to know.
Well on that. So this CSHTML, I'm guessing that's just C#'s templating language.
Yes. So if let me close some of these. CSHTML means that if I come up here, CSHTML is C# HTML. And what it has is it allows you to put what's called Razor, which is allows you to combine C# type programming into HTML. So this is now programmy stuff that the server knows about being put into the HTML. So it will still come out as HTML at the end, but when you're writing it.
Yeah. I've just made one of those connections, which is like really trivial to everyone else probably, but it's blown my mind. So I was just thinking that this syntax looks very similar to the templating language we saw in Laravel with our guest last night. And that templating engine was called Blade. And so I'm guessing Razor inspired Blade or the other way around because it's the same syntax and a very similar name.
I think maybe, I don't know. I know that, you know, we've now got Blazor, which is Razor in the browser, and things like that, which works with Webpack, or is it WebAssembly? WebAssembly, WASM. There we go, not Webpack, WebAssembly. So many web things. So, you know, that's what a CSHTML is, but fundamentally it's HTML. And if you were coming in and didn't have any idea about C# or Razor, you could just look at the HTML and pick it out. It's still really important job. Nice. So we can have a look. We've got obviously some images, more images we can go through, and then the README, which is really important. If you do big changes, you know, it's nice to put READMEs in and update them. So this is like some other things and videos and just fiddling. Sometimes you'll get formatting things. So we actually have an editor configuration that says we use tabs. This is how many spaces are in a tab. We have all that configured. So otherwise, if you don't have that kind of thing, if someone's got their editor set up with spaces and someone has it set up with tabs, you're always getting the diff when you work on a file because it changes it. So we've got all of that. I'm happy that that's been gone through. So we're going to do a review. I'm the worst at writing these comments. I'm going to go good to go. And I always like to do emojis because I've recently discovered like emojis on here. So I'm going to be like, ta-da. And
emojis in GitHub are my favorite thing.
It's great.
1 second. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Silicon Orchid. You just got hit by the mod bot. You didn't heed my warning. Silicon Orchid shared, Razor has been around since ASP.NET MVC2. ASP, sorry. So around 2010, would be interesting to see how the history intertwines there. But, it picked up ASP.NET as a link. So very sorry. If you want to post links, let me know. I don't think that was what was intended here. The mod bot's just too aggressive. I need to add that comment to the allow list. I'm so sorry. So you were writing an approval comment on this?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm the worst at these.
Yeah.
So when you do a PR, you might get a comment, which is like, I've approved it. I'm waiting for another approver to come through. Right. Or you might get, I really need you to go and change something. So there'll be comments in there like, I'm not happy with the way you've done this code. We want it to be consistent. So would you mind going and doing it like this? So you might get a request for changes. I'm going to approve this, which is, I'm happy with it.
Awesome. And
then we can see that there's no conflicts. So I'm actually going to merge it, confirm it. And that's it. So now if I come back up to the top and I go back to pull requests, we can see it's gone. Now, what that's done is merged that PR into dev. Mm-hmm. And we can see if we go to our GitHub actions, we can now see that that's triggered a build. So this takes about 90 seconds to do that. So we can see the build come in. And if we want to see where that's building, it's going to go up to our test deployment. So if I open that link,
it's also
this is where it's going to build to.
In the wiki. I feel like I never see any GitHub projects using the wiki. Nice.
I actually really like the wiki on projects. I've used them quite a lot. So excuse me.
Bless you.
So we can wait for this to go. If we go and look at this now, it should look like the live one, because we haven't done any. This is a new PR. So
do you want to have a look inside that the YAML that defines that action whilst we're waiting?
Sure. So I think we can go in here, and I can try. I can find it on
shortcut to it. Yeah, we can go through the code.
Yeah, it's in the GitHub, I think. Workflows. And we can have a look at this one. Yeah. Great. So this is all set up for going to Azure. So it's going to the test slot. Mm-hmm. And we can tell it what we're going to run it on. Right. We tell it where to go and get credentials. And that's all set up in Azure.
Yeah.
We tell it which version of .NET this is running on, so it knows what to build it on. And we give it some commands, which is go and run it, use configuration, do a release build, not a debug build, and then publish it.
Yeah. And for folks who haven't seen GitHub Actions before, this run field on line 30 is just like invoking shell scripts on the VM. So you can just literally tell it to build how you would build it on your own local machine or on your make file or whatever.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so that just goes off there. So we can go back and have a look at our actions, and that's already gone. But you can see we've probably got some failed builds down here. So so it will tell you. You can go in and see where in the process it failed. So we can probably go and see. Yeah, it said it couldn't find something, so we knew there was an error in the code, so we could go and fix it. And that was actually a test hadn't been updated, so it didn't sort of fail as such when we built the project, because the test was in a separate project. But when we ran the whole thing on the build server, it was like, oh, I've got the doorbell ringing, the dogs are.
Oh, we love some belligerent dogs on the show. We had dog invasion yesterday as well.
She's very angry. Hackles are up. So we can see where the errors are. Now, if we go and refresh this, we're hoping to see the glorious changes that White Panther put in.
Right.
So it'll take a little while.
Depending what they did with the styling, whether they tried to mimic the existing styling with Tailwind, we may not see anything except the class. Whoa, that's so shiny! Oh my god!
So
wild.
There you go. So I had seen some of this on stream yesterday. So huge changes here. And that's just with CSS. So, contributions to an open source project can be really powerful. And, just because this is a C# project doesn't mean that someone who does front end development can't come and make a major impact,
Yeah. And actually, as you say right there, right at the bottom of the site, there was like, I'm a front end developer. Can I contribute to this?
Yes.
Yes. With a big
yes.
yes.
So you can see that what a fantastic job White Panther has done. So there's things in here. Everything's been changed around. We've got these nice cards. So it's a really, huge change.
Yeah, it's so nice that I'm not even mad that we're losing the lovely scrolling text. I think the scrolling text would be nice, but it's true.
I don't know what Marcus' voice program is going to think about that. He's been working very hard on his marquee. So we can go and test now, have a look around. Can we still log in? Yeah, we can see that we've got some PRs things here. We can add them. So we saw that these were stripped out. So I know that Salma hasn't gotten to all of it because you can see it's a huge job. But okay, we've still got...
It's a nice point for the next pull request to style this list.
Exactly. Someone now can come in and fix this bit using what Salma's done and do that. You can keep building. You can't do everything in this. So this now is something someone else who watched Salma's stream yesterday can come in and go, oh, okay, I sort of get the idea. I'm going to go and have a go. And they can come in. This is like a nice little concise bit of work. Come and do. I'm just going to style up the list with Tailwind. Great. I'd love someone to come and do that. So the last thing, once I'm happy, is I have a bit of a more manual thing to push it to main. We don't have a pipeline to this. It's still a GitHub action.
Yeah.
But actually what I do is if we, I'm going to go to the repo on my machine. Is that large? Let me make that a bit larger. And if we go repos and then this is the Hacktoberfest project. We can go get status.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in main. So I'm going to check out the dev branch. And now to get all those changes onto my machine, I'm going to pull all 100 and I need to do git pull, not just pull.
I do that all the time.
And there we go.
So aliases for it at this point. Where it's just like pull would do git pull, but
just know what I want, computer.
Yeah.
So we can pull all of those in, and we can see all of those insertions and deletions.
Yeah.
And then I'm old school. I still always like to merge the main into that. Check it's okay. Git checkout, main, git merge, dev. It does that. It's all good. And then I'm going to just git push. So now I've done that on my local machine. It's going to push all those changes back up. If we go back over to actions, we should now see the new build going to main.
Beautiful.
So that one will affect prtracker.net.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think I have an example somewhere of a GitHub action for merging from a dev branch to a main branch, but I can't remember what.
Oh, that would be fantastic. You could come and do a PR on it.
This has come up a couple of times in the show where I realized that we're now 2 weeks into Hacktoberfest shows and I still haven't completed my Hacktoberfest. I'm just going to steal all the PRs on everyone's shows. Wonderful. So while we're waiting for that to build, if folks want to contribute to this project, where should they get started?
So they can head over to prtracker.net, which I'd love you to share, Joe. So this one.
Sure. Yeah.
And on the homepage, once you turn up, it tells you where the repo is. It has a link to our Discord, which is down here, which is the Twilio Discord. I just hijacked it. So you can come in there and find the Discord channel in there. We are really welcoming. If you don't know where to start, you can watch this video by Luce Carter. She created it for the project. If you want to learn about C#, there's my old video here. I don't share that often, but it's me doing basic C#. There's also how you get it installed on your machine and things. But if you just I really want to help. I really want to start, but I don't know where. Come chat to us in Discord and we will get you going. It's the whole point of it. We just want people to come and not be intimidated by this. Because it is scary to go and do PRs on projects. And you do get some bad actors out there who can be quite unpleasant, and there's just no need for it. It's not very community spirited. All right, so we're going to see White Panther's stuff live. Boom.
Nice. Congratulations, White
Panther. So yeah, that's kind of our process. We'll go through review. We'll give you constructive feedback.
Yeah.
We're never going to be like
in the comments. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
cool.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you for showing us through that. So folks in the chat, if you are looking for a contribution to make and you too want to make a 107,000 line pull request, super cool. You've got PR Tracker, and as we already saw, there's some low-hanging fruit to get started. Do you have any issue? Is there any issues open at the moment that aren't claimed?
I need to add some issues, which I will get to. I think
it's hard keeping up with issues during Hacktoberfest because so many people claim them and get them.
Yeah. We have a few. I think that I'm going to persuade White Panther to add in issues for the things that she hasn't gotten around to yet. So she can go and do some issue adding.
I like that as a thing. Like, hey, if you take an issue, put an issue back up. Like with like stuff
that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a nice system.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that would be good. So yeah, that's kind of the process.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for showing us around that project. So I guess that kind of brings us to an end on our show today. Is there anything else you'd like to show people or mention before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I think we've had a really good chat. I've really enjoyed it, and my Twitter DMs are open. You can find me on Twitter at Layla Codes It. And if anyone wants to ask me any questions about how to get into tech or how I got into tech, my DMs are always open. I am going on holiday for 2 weeks though, so I was
about to ask when you're next streaming, but I'm guessing not for 2 weeks.
I'm not streaming, probably not again this week. I will be back streaming. I've got a week off next week, and then I'm back streaming the last week of October. So you can come and find me on my stream. I stream 3 to 4 times a week. At Layla Codes It. And we have a lovely community, and you can check out the live coders. I'm part of the live coders team as well.
They are linked in our about on Twitch, so you can find that group if you go to our this channel's main Twitch channel. We link to it, so you can find everyone in that group.
So that's kind of what I do. So thank you so much for all the questions.
No worries. So thank you so much for spending your morning with us on the stream. I'll do the awkward background shuffle now to wrap up. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
And you. Thanks, Joe. Bye, everyone.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Layla. That was wonderful. It's great to hear about such an exciting career and career change and journey, and also to get a look at an awesome project, our first C# project on the show for folks who are new to contributing. So we had a couple of folks jump in the chat who were new to Hacktoberfest. Bye, Twib. Thanks for joining us. Who were new to Hacktoberfest and were looking for a project. So I hope that was useful. Couple of things for me before we wrap up. This is our first show of the day. We have 2 more to come. I will be live with Wilhelm Klopp in about 2 hours. And then we'll be live with another Twilio evangelist this evening. Completely coincidental. When we book a guest, we send them a calendar and they choose their own slot. So we've got Lizzie Siegel coming on the show later on today, and we'll be doing Swift with Lizzie. So that will also be very exciting. And that's another project that has been set up for new contributors. So if you're interested in Swift and you're still looking for a project to contribute to, join us for our evening stream. You can find all the details about those streams at twitch.tv/raisdevs/schedule. If you want notifications when we go live, because we go live very often and that's a lot to keep track of, you can follow us and that'd be very much appreciated. If you hit the little love heart, you'll follow us, but then to get notifications, make sure you hit the bell, because Twitch has separated them like YouTube has. So you need to hit the love heart and then hit the bell. If you can also follow us on Twitter, where we tweet about the shows right before we go live every day. So we tweet in the evening, we tweet out our schedule for the next day, and then before each show we tweet. So you can follow us on Twitter as well to get those notifications. So a little bit of a schedule spoiler for you. So as I said, the schedule for the week is up at that website. I've already spoken about what we've got going on today. Tomorrow we have Juan Pablo Flores from GitHub, from GitHub Education. They did a really cool thing where over the summer, lots of students missed out on the graduation ceremonies because obviously COVID happened. So what GitHub Education did was they made a virtual graduation ceremony where students from all over the world could come to a GitHub repository, make a PR to sign a virtual yearbook, and then they used that to generate a live stream, basically a live streamed graduation. It was super cool. Juan's going to be walking us through that project tomorrow. In the evening tomorrow, we have Gregor Martinus, who is a freelance software developer, but he also does a lot of work on GitHub. Tomorrow's kind of a GitHub day, I guess. Gregor does a lot of work on OctoKit, the official wrapper for the GitHub API. He maintains OctoKit, and he's going to be doing very similar to what Layla just did with us. He's going to be doing a live PR review to some of the contributions to the OctoKit wrapper. So that's going to be super cool. And then Friday, we have PJ Haggerty in the morning. I'm not entirely sure what we're doing with PJ yet, but I'll let you know as soon as we know. We've got Shai Ruparel from Contentful in the middle slot. Shai is going to be walking us through a Django project, I believe. We're going to do some code review on an old Django project of Shai's. We do this thing where we encourage guests to bring old projects, and then we review them from the lens of like, hey, you wrote that early on in your career. What would you do differently today? We did some of that last night. It was very fun. We're going to be doing it with Shai again on Friday. And then our last show of the week is with Frida Casas, who's a Raise.dev alumni and is now a developer at Thoughtbot. So Frida's going to be talking to us about her career and her journey and what it's like working at Thoughtbot and what it was like being a Raise.dev alum. And then we're going to, again, jump into one of Frida's old projects and do a little bit of code review on. Oh, no, sorry, that's a complete lie. We're going to be doing issue safari with Frida. We're going to be looking at some projects, I believe, some Ruby projects for good. So there's an organization called Ruby for Good. We're going to be looking at issues that they have available and talking about how you can contribute, not just to get your pull requests at Hacktoberfest, but contribute to a project which is set up to have meaningful change. So that's our last show of the week on Friday. So that's everything from me. Again, a reminder, if you want those notifications, please do follow. Thank you all for hanging out in chat. You've been wonderful. We'll be back at 4 p.m. In the meantime, if you are looking to level up your developer career and you want help making it to the next step, whether that's getting your first job, doing a career change like Layla, and you want help getting the experience that you need, Raise.dev is here to help. We have expert coaches who will meet with you and work with you towards your career goals. They'll work with you on projects. They'll jump in, do some pair programming. They'll help you get everything you need to get that promotion, get that next job, whatever it is you're looking for. We are completely free whilst we're in early access, and you can find out more at raise.dev. So that's everything from me. I will see you at the next show. If you join us for the next show, if you don't, I hope to see you again sometime soon. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. So I will see you all very soon. Thank you so much.